Welcome to Learning Thursdays. I'm Dean Hale with the OASAS Learning and Development Unit and your host for today's presentation. Today's presentation is titled Effectively Managing Clinical Crisis. And joining me today are Dr. Timothy Conley and Dr. Deborah Ackerman from the Wurzweiler School of Social Work. They'll be joining me in just a moment. But first, a word about Learning Thursdays. Learning Thursdays are offered to behavioral health professionals as a free learning opportunity with the goal of improving the knowledge and skills of the New York State substance use disorder workforce as we strive to improve the lives of individuals needing prevention, treatment, recovery, and harm reduction services. A goal of Learning Thursdays is to support the professional development of the treatment, prevention, recovery, and harm reduction workforce. We do this by offering regular presentations that are relevant to today's substance use disorder treatment professional. As always, if there are any questions, comments, or suggestions, please feel free to contact us at the Learning Thursdays mailbox. You can use the same mailbox to express an interest in providing a future Learning Thursdays program. And now, it's time to start the presentation and welcome our guests.
Good morning. This is Dr. Tim Conley and Dr. Deb Ackerman from the Wurzweiler School of Social Work. We're going to offer you a presentation this morning on effectively managing clinical crises. We know that working with substance use disorders very often means working with clients in crisis. In this training, we're going to learn about practices for responding professionally to high stress, urgent, often devastating client concerns. These can include arrests, suicidality, emergency room presentation, poisoning, other potential life-threatening situations. Crisis situations need an immediate response from counselors and staff. Sometimes we have to stop what we're doing and address the crisis. We will look at how to triage, focusing specifically on methods for responding to a client or a family in crisis. In this training, we also provide you an opportunity to look at yourself. What do you bring to the crisis? What are you bringing to the table? It's not just the client. You will have your own reaction, and we'll talk about managing that. A couple of objectives, and then we'll get moving on the heart of the content here. We'd like you to be able to identify and recognize the major concepts of crisis management knowledge and how these inform the specific skills needed to help clients manage crises. Negotiate your own intense, focused emotions associated with a crisis. Like I said, we'll look at your temperament. Everybody brings themselves to the table. We are the tool, and you need to know how to manage yourself, know how to use that tool most effectively. And we will apply crisis management technique to a clinical case study. And this is where Dr. Ackerman will really come in. We have a clinical vignette recorded of Dr. Ackerman working with a client in crisis. It's an actor, but we wrote up a script. So the goal is for you to see these principles in practice with a case. So let's move to defining crisis situations. Well, we'll just go to Webster's Dictionary, which defines a crisis as a decisive moment. An individual is generally not thinking clearly in a specific moment in time. Now, Dr. Ackerman and I both teach graduate students in social work all the time. And one thing we say in our generalist practice class first is we are not meeting clients at the best moments in their life. Generally, folks are going through a hard time. They're having a rough time. And a crisis can be the pinnacle of that. It can be the roughest of the rough time that they're having. We need to keep that in mind. It can be a very decisive moment. And clients are not thinking clearly at a specific moment in time. And we'll see that in the case. Can't even focus in some cases. A crisis can also be a turning point. It's a breakdown or a disruption in an individual's functioning, their ability to cope, their coping mechanisms, their generally what they bring to the table is not working at its best when there's a crisis. Dr. Ackerman, a couple of words about what a crisis is, decisive moment, turning point. How else would you characterize it?
I would definitely link it to trauma. It's something that's not expected, and that's going to set off what we call that kind of fight, flight, or freeze response, where the definition is that it's a normal response to a very abnormal situation. Somebody who's attempted suicide, somebody who has overdosed in front of you. Those are very traumatic moments, and your brain and body go into this automatic response.
And Dr. Ackerman and I both have extensive clinical practice in addictions and have seen this many, many times. Emergency rooms, crashes. I worked a lot with driving under the influence, and people recreate that. They can go into crisis just remembering what that trauma was. So, definitely a turning point in an individual's ability to just carry on their usual normal daily activities. It's compromised when they're in crisis. Let's take a look. It's a situation, by the way. Crises cannot be resolved with a client's customary problem-solving skills and resources, and that's what we mean by their ability to cope and function breaks down. What they would ordinarily do to be able to manage things isn't really going to be working right now. That's why they turn to us. So that said, Dr. Ackerman mentioned a couple of causal factors. Let's look at that a little bit more. Oh, notice the crisis clinic. We have to, by the way, in coping yourself with dealing with crises on a regular basis, it helps to have a little sense of humor. And I saw this particular picture very early in my career, and it sort of stayed with me that, yep, there's the clinic. Okay, let's look at the causal factors. Grim Reaper shows up here, right? The unknown. Death can cause crises. It's what did you say, Dr. Ackerman? It's a normal response to an
The
abnormal
normal,
situation.
correct, the normal response to an abnormal situation. This is not
Mm-hmm.
supposed to happen, and it is happening right in front of your eyes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that could be the case with death. It's like they shouldn't have died now. They're too young, that kind of thing. There's
Correct.
loss, the sense I'll never see them again. Notice the absolute language starts to creep in. I have a whole other slide on the absolute kind of statements that people make, never, always, etc. Rejection too can be a crisis. Like this person is leaving my life. Um, we know that substance use disorders compromise interpersonal functioning. People will leave the client's life. They will feel like they're the object of hate. That can bring on a real crisis for them. The breakdown of an important interpersonal relationship with them is like, whoa. And they're, actually, I really like the case we chose for this, Dr. Ackerman. We'll see that
So
with the client. She thinks she may never see him again, right? Failure at recovery or life. Oh boy, that can bring up stuff, right? Fail, fail, fail. Um, and this was for you, Dr. Ackerman, may link to what?
old self-esteem wounds. There you go.
Oh, tell me a little about those old self-esteem wounds and how that can play into a crisis.
Well, especially when you're dealing with people with addiction, and they're fragile. They have very fragile egos, which they compensate for by using substances that help them feel better temporarily, which obviously leads to addiction and not helping them feel better. And what I always tell my students is you cannot hate somebody with addiction more than they hate themselves.
Mm,
Positively detest themselves. So no matter how angry you ever get at somebody with alcoholism or a behavioral or substance addiction or disorder, it will never match the amount they hate themselves.
hmm
So when
hmm
something like this happens, this crisis where God forbid somebody has been hurt, them or someone else, that's just going to trigger all of those emotions to come bubbling forth with really no end in sight for them. I mean, it's over. Like life has just ceased to exist.
And a crisis may reopen one of the core beliefs of I am basically a bad and unworthy person. That
Yeah.
stuck with me from was it Carnes training? The self-esteem of people with addiction is pretty close to the surface, and they can really go into a crisis when they feel like their life has just failed all totally. So
Yeah.
there are some of your causal factors. Let's take a look at some common client feelings during a crisis. Here comes those feelings jumping out of Pandora's box, I guess. Um, Bewilderment. Client will be uncertain. They're really not clear about somebody's motives. They'll be endlessly running, what are they thinking about me? What are they thinking about me? There's that fear again. Danger, fear, perception of harm, tension, living in one's head. Um, and I question whether to bring this quote in. I don't know. If we don't like it, we'll cut it from the we'll cut it from the video. Uh, I think the 12-step programs say fear is the chief activator of all our character defects. Fear that we will lose something we have or won't get something we want. That kind of that's paraphrasing from the AA Big Book, but that's really can be at the core of a crisis is people are really afraid of what is happening. And when that fear comes in, fear of the unknown, et cetera, it does not bring out the best. And they need us. They need us to be with them and to join with them. Confusion, thought process, all over the place. You'll again, I'm jumping ahead of that case study, Dr. Ackerman. It was so good. Our mock client did such a great job of being confused. Thought processes all over the place, muddled by the emotions, poor coping skills. Coping skills are breaking down. I think we're going to stay with the common client feeling. So bewilderment, danger, fear, confusion, stress. That can be physiological, like high blood pressure, uh, frustration, feeling powerless, belittled, back to those self-esteem wounds. Who knows what kind of internal dialogue they're running? A very useful model for treatment of addictions is cognitive behavioral therapy. And we'll find that in the cognitive set, in the language that's going on in the client's head can be some belittling statements. And they may revert to a time when they felt like they were powerless or put down. Hopelessness, helplessness, hopelessness are the characteristics of depression, by the way. It may feel misunderstood. No, you don't get it. You don't get it, they'll say intensely. They're feeling misunderstood. Our job will be to offer support and understanding as possible, and then they might get angry. That can be a default. I'm going to flip over to Dr. Ackerman for a comment on this slide. Did I get it? Is this all of them?
Yeah, you definitely got it. And I think when you go to the top one of physiological, I've seen people throw up. I've seen them start, smacking their heads. I've seen them just literally collapse on the ground. They are just so overwhelmed with what's
Mm-hmm.
going on, and the amount of chemicals that are coursing through their body with the reality of what's going on can really lead to a lot of physiological reactions. And I think there's a lot of guilt that comes in of like,
Mm-hmm.
what did I do? What should I have done? What's going on here? Guilt is a very powerful, and of course that goes with the shame, which will
I,
compound everything.
I appreciate your highlighting the physiological stress because we'll see clients rocking, unable to make contact, looking off in the distance. These feelings are just overwhelming them.
The fetal position, they'll curl up, they'll start, like you said, putting their head down, rocking back and forth, just get me out, escape.
In a crisis, absolutely in a crisis state. And you could use the language for that could be they're in a state of crisis. And that means all of these things or some of these things off this menu. I think there's more feelings here. They may feel like they're at an impasse, having no options. Now, we don't want to jump in and start problem solving. Like, no, no, no. I know it looks like you have no options, but you can do this, you can do that. We don't want to start with that, but we want to recognize they're thinking they have no options, or the option list that's in their head, back to that cognitive thing, the option list that's in their head is very short because they're not used to problem solving and recovery and sobriety. Uh, there's desperation, an urgency, a need to do something like right now, but what? Like something has to happen, and everything is so compressed in a crisis. Or it can be apathy, like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And this would be if we sort of go into problem solving mode first with a client, whatever we say, they may go, that isn't going to help. That isn't going to help. Et cetera, et cetera. Discomfort. I think we've hit it on the common client feelings, restlessness, unhappy, unsettled. Okay, let's look at the statements that are going to come from a client who is in crisis. What kind of things are they going to say? What's going to come out or commonly does? Never, always, always, never. Uh, those are fairly common. I will never. This will always. I can't stand it. It's the same, the same, the same. I knew this would happen. It always does. That is so fatalistic. But yeah, that could be what we used to call it, Dr. Ackerman, a self-fulfilling prophecy
Oh
thing.
yeah.
It's like I've done this to myself again.
Yep.
Keep in mind when a client's in crisis, it might not be what we call their first rodeo. they may have been there before. And I'm going to defer to you, doctor. It's the same. I knew this would happen. It always does. Nothing can change. Can you speak to that just a little bit?
It's that pattern that they can't get themselves out of, right? And
Hmm.
it, because people with addiction also have very poor consequential thinking, and it's very hard for them to kind of notice that their behaviors are going to lead to these actions until they hit this crisis. Just to kind of share with you, I always tell my clients, I kind of pray that your rock bottom will be enough to jar you, but not enough to hurt you or somebody else in any permanent way. It's that really balance of reality versus hopefully this isn't a permanent problem for you or somebody else.
I love it. I love it. And this happens when I teach. I'm having a poetry attack. There's a line I wrote years ago says, "May your wounds be deep enough, they make you stronger when they heal. May they not be quite so deep. It's a hurt you'll always feel." I
Oh,
think
wow.
right, right. Did you not just say the same thing? I
Did
hope
you
that
make
the
that
rock.
up? That's great.
I
Is that
did. I
you?
did. I
Oh,
created this.
wow. Okay. I would send that to me. I'm going to use that. That's
Yeah,
great.
I
I
was
like
writing
that.
to my and get this, and I'm aware we're trading here. I wrote this to my social work students, right? Because they're going to hurt too, and we're going to talk that. That's going to come into the presentation here shortly. That working with clients in crises, working in the field of addictions, that can hurt us as counselors as well. Which is why a little later in the presentation we talk about temperament, how you are naturally inclined to react to crisis yourself, and bringing that in. So, yeah, there's going to be hurt. There's going to be pain. We know that. Uh, and and we know that that can present an opportunity for the client to grow as a result of it. So hopefully we can get to that. There's some more absolute statements coming, I think. I have this really confused little graphics, and I appreciate the training team at OASAS encouraging me to put more graphics into my slides. I often don't. My stuff can be a little dry, but I think we got this. Is this look enough confused? There's always, oh, get this, good old fashioned. I knew you'd appreciate this. Boom. This'll happen. Then that'll happen. And when that happens, this is going to happen because that happened. And then the other thing's going to kick in and happen. It always does. And then we never. Does that sound about
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Yeah, it is. And you wind up with a little board on the right there of it starts looking like a physics equation, but we're really talking about somebody's inner emotional life being like a runaway train. Makes me want to take a deep breath, which is what I do when I'm working with somebody in crisis. Take a deep breath myself, model a slightly calmer state for them. Because client anxiety crisis is characterized by anxiety, which is based in fear. And whenever I hear anxiety or see it, I want to take a deep breath myself because I know that helps combat it. I know that helps treat it. So here comes that fear again that we talked about 5 slides ago. Person feels threatened. So noticeable increase or change in behavior. We talked about this. I'm going to keep moving right through pacing, sweating, crying, rocking, talking a lot, can't make eye contact, shallow breathing, which is why Dr. Conley takes deep breaths when he's working with somebody in crisis, because we want them to, and reflexive sobbing, right? Dr. Ackerman, can I ask, do you wait that out when someone is like doing that kind of stuff? What's your
Well,
reaction to that?
that's a great question. First of all, I do want to just say this all goes under that umbrella of fight, flight, or freeze. This is a trauma, and that's how the body and brain are going to react. We're either going to fight it, we're going to try to flee from it, or we're going to have that kind of what you call apathy and freeze from it. Do I wait it out? Safety first for everybody. You don't want somebody hyperventilating and passing out. But I do think that you have to assess your client, and they do need to be able to get it out. If it looks like the client is not doing well, then, for sure, call for help, get medical assistance because it
Mm,
can
hmm.
get to the point of needing medical assistance. And
Yeah.
do not ever discount that. This is a crisis on every level. And, like, don't try this trick alone at home. Don't think that you have to do this alone without a support team.
That's a great point. I mean, is it a panic attack or a heart attack, right? We have to make that call at some point. Is there something medically going on here? And depending on the level to which the individual's addiction has progressed, they can be physically compromised as it is. We know that their brain is kind of taking some hits, been a lot of chemical bath going on there. if someone really is showing all of this kind of physiological stuff and it goes on and on, we've got to, we need to pull the
I
trigger
always
for
tell
some
my
additional help, right?
right, I always tell my clients and my students I am conservative. I would rather send someone to an ER 14 times the wrong way than, God forbid, miss one that really needed the help. So call for help, make sure your client's okay. Safety first, second, third, and last. They
Love
gotta
it.
be
Love it. And that transitions to the next slide really well. What is the role? What is our role in a crisis? If I get my slides to go forward here, I have a little difficulty with it. Give me a second. The inevitable technical difficulty. Let's see. There we go. Uh, oh, it came up. What is the role of a staff in crisis? Well, the staff approach should be client-centered. We need it to be about them. We need it to be about the client and to really be with them. Acknowledge and validate their feelings. I know you're feeling this. I know this is going on. Understandable. Absolutely understandable. I totally get why you're like so amped up right now. That helps. That kind of validation can have a calming effect. Do not blame or shame. Uh, it's you may think you got yourself into this. You should have known this kind of thing should happen. Don't say it. Whatever your own
ever.
internal thing is, do not. It's like you might have seen this coming. You might have seen this coming from last week that it was headed this. They didn't. They didn't. The
Right.
client does not try to put themselves in these situations. It's just a manifestation of their addictive
It's right.
thinking, right? Right? More on that, Dr. Ackerman? You're
So it's a manifestation of the disease, and the blaming and the shaming is the absolute last thing that they need. They need a lot of support at that
sure
moment.
do. Sure do. Uh, people with addiction suffer, and we want to comfort in the ways that we can, especially during a crisis, and help them to identify maybe what precipitated their behavior. I don't know. That's not what we want to lead with, but we may want to get it there. And for the clinician, it's important to process things with your supervisor too. Once you have been involved in a crisis, it can really help the clinician to do their own debriefing about it. Um, oh, well, my bullets came in at once. I usually walk them in. Let's see. So staff approach, client-centered, uh, acknowledge that. Okay, we got all that process with it. Oh, acknowledge and validate your feelings and client plan. Suspend judgment. Very important to suspend judgment. Let me see what else we got here. Help the client focus. Oh, we're so going to see this in the what was the client's name in the vignette? Dr. Ackerman, I'm blanking on it.
I know her real name. I
Yeah.
forgot what we used.
Okay, well,
I don't know
whatever
if
the
we used
stage
the
name. Yeah, when she comes in, we will see Dr. Ackerman help this client focus
right.
like a laser. Supportive, non-judgmental. We're going to role play this for you so you can see how this kicks in. Supportive, not judgmental. We want to respond with empathy and even-handedness. This may help alleviate some of the anxiety. It's very important when we are interacting with a client in crisis that we listen, affirm their feelings or concerns, assist them,
Reassure.
reassure them. I thought that was a pretty good graphic there. Good eye contact, being right with, being open, trying to help pull the person into the minute, into where they are and get them out of that rabbit hole of if this and then that and they never and we always, we can pull it. These kinds of clinical reactions to a client in crisis can really have a grounding effect. It really is the treatment. The treatment in a crisis are these things. Listen, affirm their feelings, et cetera, et cetera. Oh, you can say I'm listening, I'm listening. Those are very tactical things. Say that. And I hear you. Remind them to stay with the current situation, but let them know that they're being heard. Stay on task. There's the old rabbit hole thing again. Had some issues with the slides here. Let me see how this is going. First, do no harm. Ensure that they don't make the situation worse. If the client comes up with an absolute horrible thing, like, oh, an example is, uh, you know, my boyfriend's arrested. They put him in the jail. I know they're supposed to give him medication, but they won't. So I'm gonna get him some. I know how to get some. It's like, whoa, hold it. That's gonna make the situation. I have heard this. I can't let him go into withdrawal. I love him too much. I'll do whatever. It's like, you will
Uh,
definitely make it worse because you'll go into. So no, do no harm. Don't let the client make it worse. And even if they suggest something completely from outer space, validate before you confront. Oh, I love teaching practice, Dr. Ackerman, right? You always
but
validate no matter how out there it is. It's like, well, I can see why you would think that way. Or,
however,
that's one way
however,
of reasoning it out. However, think it through,
probably not your
diffuse.
best choice, right?
Probably not your best choice. Let's brainstorm up a few more ideas. And and I know you don't want them suffering. That's good. Nobody wants someone they love suffering. Let's figure out a more effective, less consequential way to get you there. We want to diffuse, de-escalate, maintain personal and client safety. I think we covered. We don't struggle or argue. Aggression furthers aggression. Do not raise your voice with clients in crisis. We do Yelling at somebody is just never really going to do anything. You can be authoritative. You may have to hold the boundaries, the rules of the agency or whatever you're at, but do so rationally. We'll take a look at temperament here in a couple of slides. Know what your I'm speaking to the participants. Know what your natural inclination to react in these things is. What do you usually react like when somebody gets into a crisis situation? And be aware of that and maintain rational thinking and rational authority. We can coach people. That's good. Tick tock, tick tock, tick 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 tock. It can help to plan for the next 30 minutes, 1 hour, half a day. Often clients are so caught up in the moment, they're not thinking, where are you staying? Who are you with? Uh, you know, Something as simple as when's the last time you ate? What do they call it? Hangry. Don't want
Yeah,
to be hungry, anger. What is it? How's that go?
hungry, angry, lonely, lonely, tired, and yes, have you eaten? Have you drank? Did you have water? Sit down,
Mm-hmm.
breath.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
When's
think
the
Dr. Conley, when I'm looking at all these wonderful slides, I really picture in my mind an emergency room at a hospital and
mm,
how emergency room staff would handle what's going on. Nobody cares why you have an eraser stuck up your nose right now. The point is you're in pain and we need to get it out and just get you to feel better. And
right.
why and all that later. And that's where we need to take the calm, center the person, and like you said, what are we gonna do in the next half hour, in the next hour? How can
And
I help you now?
and interacting with the client, it'll be like, what do you mean if I eaten? What do you mean if I slept? It's like, well, if you're not fed and rested,
Not going to be effective.
you're not going to be effective. It's like you need to bring your best to the situation. So first thing you do when the airplane's going down is put a mask on yourself.
Exactly.
Then we can put a mask on the person next to you.
You're containing. People feel
Yeah.
like they're falling in a vortex. They're free
hmm
fall. And
hmm
there to say,
hmm
like, I'm catching you. You're not going to fall to the bottom and crash. I'm right here.
And I put the clocks up there because it is temporal. It's where are you in time? And what is next? What regular activities or appointments are coming up? It's like we need to think this through. The world doesn't stop with the crisis. It's like, you know, what do they say? 24 hours at a time or 1 hour at a time or 1 minute at a time.
I
But
think it's one day at a time, but sometimes
oh,
that's
is
two.
it? Does it go to a day?
Yeah, exactly. And then we go to 1 hour and 1 minute.
Right, there
Sometimes a day
you
is
go.
way
Well,
too long.
what are you
So
doing for the next 24 seconds,
it's
right?
literally, what are you doing for the next 10 seconds? And
Yeah. And that can and you know what that can be? Take a deep breath. Take
yeah.
a breath. Gather your thoughts for a second, and then tell me what's going on. So that kind of intervention, that's our role, is to center the client in the present, keep them in the moment, as much in the moment as they can. They call it mindfulness these days. We've been doing it for a long time. Okay, keep moving because I really do want to get to this case and discuss it a bit. Maybe ask the client, have they called work? Are they obligated to? Are they making the crisis work worse by not doing the next thing that they have to? You can be in a crisis and having what some would call a meltdown, et cetera, an anxiety state. But let's not let that crisis spill over and then you miss a mandatory UA or something. It's like, let's not make this worse. What are your obligations? If you're going to miss work, you have to call them, because that job is the key to blah, 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 blah. So imply that life does go on. These are steps. I think I put steps in. Yeah, there we go. Concrete steps. Actually, we put in concrete steps.
You
Uh,
go.
Encourage adaptive coping. right? There are ways to adapt to this. Help them to identify how to prevent it in the future. We'll get there. And you can parking lot some of this stuff. You can say to the client, hey, we're going to deal with this crisis now, but you know what? You and I are going to talk about this again. I'm going to see you, or you have group tomorrow at 9 o'clock. You really, the group is just going to have so much good feedback for you, that kind of thing. Encourage adaptive coping and let them know, hey, you're in counseling and you have a way to work this out. And I know you would like this to never happen again. Let's see if we can work on that. Help them to identify how to prevent things in the future. Um, Sometimes in the past, a crisis may have blown up their life. How have they managed a crisis before? That's important. To say you've dealt with something like this, you came out of it okay, you're here right now. What did you do that worked well in the past? Play with that strengths perspective. What are your strengths? I know that you've dealt with things like this, maybe even worse things. What worked then? Get them thinking solution. Uh, Remind them of their strengths, maybe positive past program engagement. You've been doing great in the program. You've handled so many things so far. I know you're committed to changing your life. Um, Client may have a spirituality uh, process going in their life in which they're gaining some spiritual tools to cope. Remind them of that. And who are friends? We all cope in groups. So I'm going to nod to motivational interviewing. I'm going to flip through several slides, probably fairly quickly, and we'll talk about MI approach to this. Anything to add on this, Dr. Ackerman, before I move into some MI stuff?
The one thing that you said that I thought was really important is the future orientation. Future equals hope.
Mm-hmm.
That everybody needs some hope, especially in a crisis, and that's really important to me.
Yep. Think it through. There are things on the other side of this. It is not the end of the world. It is not the end of your life. No,
Correct.
that's great. Mm-hmm. Yep. Um, Yeah, us social workers were real big on that strengths perspective and instilling hope in
Yep.
people.
That's the spirituality.
Yes. Okay. MI stuff. Avoid arguing for change. I think that for our participants here with this OASAS Learning Thursday training, I suspect that if they are not steeped in MI, are at least familiar with the principles. So very quickly, avoid arguing for change. Do not directly oppose the resistance. You roll with the resistance. Uh, New perspectives can be offered, but not imposed. We don't tell clients you have to do this, but hey, one option is, or I'm going to empower you to come up with some more effective coping things here. The client is the primary resource in finding answers and solutions. They know their life way better than we ever will. I don't care how many hours of therapy we do with them. They are still the best source of knowledge on their own life. They may not be the best source of solutions at the moment, but we still want to stay with this is your idea and this is something that you're really buying into. Um, Resistance is a signal for the client to respond differently. If they're starting to argue back with you, look at yourself and say, what am I doing that's making this argumentative, and go back to rolling with the resistance. Okay. Some other MI stuff. A person's belief in the possibility of a change is an important motivator. And if they have expressed belief that they could change before, bring it back up. We know this. Um, it helps if you have a relationship with the person that you're counseling through the crisis. The participant, not the counselor, is responsible for choosing and carrying out change. And the counselor's own belief in the participant's ability to change becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I know you can get through this. Those kind of things are huge. Anything other nods to MI before I go into useful tactics and techniques and talking about clinician temperament, Dr. A?
Love the slide. I just
Pretty cool, huh?
love that one.
I really have to thank the OASIS team for
That's great.
encouraging me to dig up these graphics.
That's a great slide. That's all I have to say. Move
Didn't
on.
realize I was being defensive.
That's great. I love that one. That's
Little
great.
spike sticking out all over me. It's
Love
good.
it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Great
Okay.
visual.
All right. I think I got some pigeons next, so got to keep it interesting here. Uh, Oh yeah, the whole slide popped up at once. Yeah, I had to fix
There you
this
go.
right before we started started training. I'm like, the slide. So the basic temperament of both the clinician and the client is in play here, and it's important to know what is yours. There's an old tool, Dr. Ackerman, you remember the Myers-Briggs type indicator, the MBTI?
Yeah.
It talks about the
You're
four.
dating yourself, Dr. Conley, but be careful. Yeah. You might want to call that one back. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, well, so much for MBTI, but
No,
there are
it's
basic personality traits that any human has. Everybody has some level of, are you outgoing or are you, less outgoing, introverted, extroverted, it was called. And sensing or intuitive, thinking or feeling, judging and perceiving. How do you come across it? It's important to consider our own basic personality temperament because it informs how a client will likely behave in a crisis and can also determine in part how it determines how their character or personality determines how they're going to behave in a crisis, and yours may have some determinant effect on how you'll behave in a variety of situations.
yeah,
Do you cry at sad movies? Hallmark commercials? A gut check. How is your own affective self-regulation? Know thyself. You see where I'm going with this, Dr.
ab-
Ackerman?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The most effective tool that anybody has in our business, treating and working with people with addictions, is themselves.
Themselves. Yeah.
And you should know that tool well. You should be able to pick it right up and go, this is what I'm bringing here. This is what I know about me is useful in these kind of situations. Okay. So be self-aware. Know the difference between your reaction versus your response. Your initial reaction can be whatever's going on in your head. Your response is what you want to express. Temper your own attitude, remain calm, take those deep breaths, call the client by their name, inquire about what the client's feeling and what is happening. Make eye contact, demonstrates that you care about them and what is happening. I think I might reiterate the use their name. It's real important. If you say, I get it, or simply say, Richard, I get it. Saying somebody's name right to them while you're looking at their face tends to bring them into you.
Correct.
They're going to turn. If you go, Richard, no, Richard, I get it. Listen,
Correct.
but like, I want to listen. I want to listen, but if you're going to slow down and speak in whole sentences so I can get it. I really want to get this with you. So that kind of stuff can be so important. Being aware, knowing your own attitude, remaining calm, make the eye contact and use the client's name. Your tone, the inflection, the highs, lows, pitches. Want to avoid sarcasm, impatience, condescension, or disrespect. Kind of basic, but we do. Uh, Keep it appropriate for the situation. We may need to model lowering it, and we may need to model a cadence, the rate and pace at which we're speaking to clients. Don't talk so fast that they're not getting it. And if you're speaking and the client's getting a blank look on their face, they're not getting what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's like,
They've checked out.
right?
Yep,
Say
they've
say
checked
more
out.
about that.
No, they've checked out, and you need to be aware of what that is. And then I think you have to very gently bring it back. Richard, are you okay? Tell me what are you thinking? What's on your mind now? And
Mm-hmm.
so you're
Mm-hmm.
showing the client, I really am very in tune with you. What we're looking for, those nonverbal responses, which are so important, the eyes shifting, the blank stare, the things that are not being communicated through words. And then we have
Right.
to acknowledge that and state it and then bring it back. Tell me
And
what's on now for you.
and I think I put the little runner in there because there's different rates that if the client's running, you may need to run to keep up, but you may want to go down to a jog or a walk, you know. Try
Yeah.
and be aware of the cadence and the pace at which things are going. Um, you can always ask for help from another staff member when needed. We talked about supervision and debriefing a crisis, going back over it with your supervisor to say, what did I do well? What do I wish I did different? There's always the I should have said or I could have done. So um, it can be we rely on one another. Addiction counselors work in groups. We put our clients in groups, but your staff members in the agency or the practice are your group as well. You want to be able to back up, demonstrate patience, and set expectations with limits. Explain them to the client. You can't, disrupt the whole milieu here. Um, let's bring it back to you and try not to allow things to really get too out of control. Couple more techniques, incentives, how this will feel afterwards. There's a real potential to change. This does, they're like, this changes everything. You're like, yes, it can change. Well, a lot of things. Let's talk about what change can happen here. Help them express the feelings that are underpinning the crisis. You got to be careful with humor. I can over rely on it a little bit, but a laugh really does get people calmed down. They say laughter. What's your take on that, Dr. Ackerman, with some of these techniques?
I think humor is incredible. I think you have to be, in my personal experience, a seasoned clinician to know where to use it and how you use it the right way. It's very
Hmm.
effective. You use it the wrong way, it's gonna have really bad, effects. But once you get the rhythm of when you can use some humor, again, it's a future orientation. It's like, wait, you know what? I'm not gonna die. I'm okay. And
Hmm.
but watch people use it first. Don't
Yeah, well,
automatically
and it can help
modify.
if you know that the client maybe has a sense of humor that where they can sort of laugh through some situations, tap into it.
Yeah,
We
exactly.
want to evoke and elicit from the clients the skills.
Yeah, and it
When
really can be very effective, but again, it has to be used very judiciously and with sensitivity. But if you can master that skill, it's great.
Yeah, fantastic. Uh be a role model, demonstrate appropriate behavior yourself, be knowledgeable about the clients you serve. They all have the capacity to change. We need to believe that. Remain positive. And by the way, document all crisis situations in a comprehensive way. Very important to take notes. And if you can take them in the moment, it's even better. I'm a big fan of dictating notes. I use the talk and type software where I talk into my computer and it writes down what I say. So effective at keeping good notes,
That's good.
especially in a crisis situation. Write a brief one. You do as well, Dr. A. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good stuff. Yeah.
After the acute crisis, you may see some emotional stability, a decrease in physical and emotional energy, characterized by regaining some rationality. These techniques work, meeting the client where they are, empowering them to find their inner strength, future thinking, validating. All of these things do work to de-escalate. And you'll start to see, if not, if not a Zen moment in the mountains, you'll start to see that the client is behaving a little bit differently. They'll regain their rationality. The agitation, the loud voice, and tears may stop. Um, you know, sobs and sighs will stop as anxiety diffuses and returning breathes to normal. They may be tired. They may be embarrassed,
That one's important,
right?
right?
Talk
That's
about it. Go
right, with
ahead.
that surge of adrenaline and crying and rocking, they may be more than tired. They may be exhausted and
Hmm.
physically
Hmm.
and emotionally and mentally unable to process one more thing. And start from where the client is and cut it. There'll be more time to work. It's time to go get some food. It's time to go to sleep. It's time to let your body heal from what
Yeah,
just
they
happened.
can be embarrassed. Let them know it's okay. It's all right. We all have a crisis. It like you were overwhelmed in the moment. I get it. Totally. Here we are. Uh, you know, it's all right. Feel a little embarrassed. I get it, but I'm your counselor. I'm the addiction counselor. I'm the helping person. I'm here for you. It's fine. We're
It's
gonna be good
literally
with this.
time to finish it, tuck them into their proverbial bed and safety, and just go and now heal yourself for that. It's too much.
Reframe as normal. Okay, good. Great. Well, I've been talking all around the edges of this fantastic case presentation that we're gonna do. I am hoping for no technical issues as I queue up the video and get this
Okay.
running. We're going to talk about the case of, if this works, Steve's crash. Steve had a crash, and uh, his significant other is very upset about that.
Yep.
I'm looking off to the edge here because I'm going to try to enlarge a video and share the screen on the video. So Dr. Ackerman is going to intervene with Steve's significant other. Um, I'm not going to share any details before the crisis management case example here. I may fill in a few afterwards when we debrief it.
Lily, hi, it's Debbie. What's going on? Why did you call for this meeting? What happened?
Well, you know, Steve's in jail right now, and he said there's like a
Steve,
five.
wait, Lily, I can't. Lily, what happened? Steve, what? Hold right there. Okay. So you see right away, no eye contact. She's hyperventilating. Words are coming, they're tumbling. So wait, just here, look at, let's slow it up. Let me understand what's going on. Right. Just initially, let's work together here.
He's there. He hit this old lady. He was high, but he had like these withdrawals. He was going through these withdrawals, and like I'm going through them too, and I know how it feels. And he's probably just really sad and scared, and nobody's paying attention, to that. And now getting him out of jail is probably going to be like, they say it's $500,000. I can't pay that. I don't know.
How's that, Dr. Ackerman, for lack of eye contact, not really center. She's off in space. She's feeling like she's in withdrawal with him.
She's also physically, you see, like swiping her nose. She's all over the place. Her hands, like she's in a, what do they call it? A vortex, a Jervis. She's just completely dysregulated and gone here from A to Z.
And when I first reviewed the video, I was like, $500,000. Wait a minute. But I'm not going to say that to her. I'm not going to say $500,000. That sounds ridiculous. No, just hold. But that's it. What I was saying on the earlier slides about reaction versus response. I may have that reaction of $500,000, but I don't say it. My response is, I have a job here. I need to get her to look at me. Right?
And that's a job.
Here it comes.
Lily, first of all, look at me. Let's just, Lily, look at me. Tell me from the beginning.
No.
Lily. Okay. All right, Lily. Let's just calm down. Let's try and work this together, okay?
I feel like no one cares. Like no one cares that he's like a nice guy. No one cares that he's sweet. No one cares that he's a good person. They just care that he did this thing, but it wasn't his fault even.
Can you tell me a little bit about what happened tonight?
Earlier in the day, I got a rose tattoo. I got this rose tattoo he loves it. Steve loves it. Okay. But now he doesn't even get to see anything.
Can you stop?
No, he doesn't get to see it.
Okay, you have a rose tattoo. Okay, and what happened after that?
And then, well, I was on the phone with him. He was having withdrawals, and then and then I heard a noise, and then he called me later, and then I got a call, and then I found out he's in jail. He's in jail because he hit a woman, and her neck, I don't know, her neck is broken.
When did Steve call you?
I don't know. He called me earlier. He called me scared, and then before, I don't know, probably the police found him. I don't know.
Was this sometimes today that Steve contacted you? Okay, and tell me exactly, what did he tell you?
I'm going to pause and say the client wants to tell the story, right, Dr. Ackerman?
Yeah, and I also wanted to say that first of all, it's been a while since I've seen this.
Right.
Her name is Lily. I must call her. She did an incredible job. I'm watching this now, and I feel like I'm being sucked into this.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Even when she says, I got a rose tattoo, there's for sure the bubble above your head is going, not relevant, like that.
Right. Right. What's a rose tattoo got to do that? You're not melting down over that.
But we don't care, but we say, okay, so you got a rose tattoo, right? This is obviously important to you right now, even though it doesn't matter.
Oh, that's great.
To what's going on, but your rose tattoo is a starting point for you. Okay, so you got a rose tattoo. We start from where the client is. We don't say, Lily, that's completely irrelevant. Move it on. No.
Exactly.
Now
that's great. Yeah, there's a few different ways we could go. I mean, I could be going $500,000. You could be going, what's a rose tattoo got to do with it? But we don't.
Right. He could have said, and then I ate a peanut butter sandwich, and you don't go, Lily, no one cares. A peanut butter sandwich. Okay. And then Lily, what happened? Because she's organizing it in her mind.
Yes. This is her narrative. And we need to let her play it out.
She's trying to put it together. So if it's her rose tattoo, her chocolate chip cookie, she listened to music, whatever it is.
Right.
just keep refocusing. No problem. Tell me what happened.
And there is some
Tell-
focusing here. I think you require some eye contact here in a minute. Let's
Told
see what
me
happens.
he told me how much he loved me. He told me how much he cared about me and how
Okay.
and how much he loves our relationship. And then he told me that he hit someone.
He hit someone. Okay. And who did he hit?
It was, I don't know, it was a lady. I don't know. Lady. Or how am I supposed to know?
No, I
How am I supposed to
understand that.
know? It was a lady. I don't know.
No, okay. So you're not aware of the detail. Okay, Lily, are you able to look at me? You able to kind of look at me a little bit? Yeah? A little bit in the eye? Okay. You're scared. I know you're very scared. It's really very scary, and I understand that. Okay.
It's like,
And-
you remember when I was in the ER? Remember when I was in the ER last year
Yeah,
when
I did.
the suicide
I
attempt?
did.
It was this is worse. This feels worse. This feels
why-
worse
why-
than that.
Why does this feel worse than your suicide attempt?
Because
2 little points: eye contact and validate the feeling of fear. Dr. Ackerman said you're scared. And by trying to draw her into the eye contact and into your face and acknowledging her feelings, the client's going to give you some more of the story. Anything else, Dr. A?
You listen to her words, like, he loves me, I love him, right? That's so important to her that we understand, no, he's a good person. I love him, he loves me. That's very powerful for her. Please don't look at him like an evil person. He's a good person.
Sure, and he loves her, and that's super important. That's the very
Super
first thing he
important.
said on the phone. He didn't say, "Hey, I'm in
Right.
jail because I
Right.
hit someone." He said, "I love you. You're wonderful. You're amazing." Yeah, he probably told her he can't wait to see the tattoo. I don't know, but that's what she came with first.
Exactly.
But we get to the story because you validate the fear and you get the eye contact. Let me see if I click back enough to run that. But let's see.
this is worse. This feels worse.
Worse than
This
when
feels
she,
worse than
worse
that.
than when she was
Why
in
does
the
this
ER.
feel worse than your suicide attempt?
Because before I hit him and now I don't. I don't know how long he's gonna be. It's $500,000 the bail.
Are you sure it's $500,000?
That's what he said. Yeah, that's what he said.
That's what he said. Okay. Do you know what jail he's in?
No.
Okay. Let me ask you a question. Who is with you right now?
Not me.
You're just alone? Okay. Did you eat anything today? Have you slept? No. Okay. Why don't we make a plan? Why don't we just
Dr.
first of all
Conley, can we?
talk about taking care of yourself for a little bit? Do you think after we're done here, you could just kind of go make yourself something to eat?
Yes.
Okay. So general practice 101, biopsychosocial, spiritual bio. Have you eaten? Who's with you? Where's your support right now? Are you going to be safe? Is there someone who can be there with you? Right? Did you drink something? Bio. How are you? Right? We've got to take care of you. I wouldn't want a client to know that they're alone. Can we have somebody be with you? Is there someone you can call? You need to be taken care of also. I know your boyfriend's in jail. I know he's freaking out, but he's actually being looked after. You're not. And that's settle down a little bit. Maybe take a shower, just start to get a little calm. Does that work for you? Okay. Is there anybody that you can call who can be with you?
Maybe my friend.
You have a friend? Okay. You have somebody maybe from the meetings that you can call? Have you been going to meetings?
Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
someone from meetings you can call?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Look, this is really very, very difficult. And I understand that. And I can see you're real nervous. You're kind of fidgeting around and your eyes are darting, and I see that this is really very upsetting. And I understand that this is upsetting. Steve's your boyfriend, and you love him, and he loves you. And he's been in a bad accident, and somebody's hurt, and that is very distressing. But we're going to make a plan. We're going to go through this one step at a time, okay? And it's importantly, listen, it's important that you come to program tomorrow. I need you to come to program. I need you to go to group tomorrow. So you can also tell everybody in group what happened, and we can be there to support you. All right.
2 things there, Dr. Ackerman, summarizing. right?
Yeah,
All the information that you
yeah.
got to date, put in a couple of sentences. She knows that she's been heard. Um, you're telling her to take care of herself, and then what? Planning for tomorrow?
Also, again, I haven't seen this in months. I really like it. Are you going to meetings? Can you call someone who won't be judgmental? Can you call someone who won't say, "What? Your boyfriend hit someone? Oh my God, you got to break up. What are you crazy?" Call somebody from the meeting. No one will judge you. Come to program tomorrow. We will support you. Right? We're not going to be your mom or your dad or your grandma's like, "Oh, Steve's such a loser." Drunk, no,
Right,
like you
right.
don't need to be entangled with this. What are you? You're only 20 something years old. Get rid of no. People in program have heard everything.
Yep,
They will
yep.
they will support you. They will be there for you. And that's important, especially somebody with addiction. Something like this could be a huge trigger for their own relapse.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So big.
And given the client profile, she's going to like being the center of attention in group tomorrow, just based on the additional clinical history that we base this on, right? She's going to be like, wait till you tell the story about Steve being in jail. It's like, oh, so
He is
there's
good. She's
and
definitely
she and
good.
she she's got a little drama to her. That's kind of her persona is, a little bit of a drama thing, but that's okay. That's just who she is, and we can use that. You want to be with group, you want to be with other people and share that this has happened. So you've really got her moving forward here. There's like a minute, 2 minutes left in the video. Let's let it roll, right? Just be sure and let me know when to stop.
You're going to be able to come tomorrow? Yes? Okay. I want go ahead, tell me.
I don't know where else I'd go.
You know, I should go. Okay. I think it's important that first one, you just kind of take care of yourself tonight. Be very gentle with yourself. And I would like it if you could call somebody and have some support tonight so that you're not alone. You think you'll be able to do that?
I don't know, maybe.
Why maybe?
I don't want to be, I just want to be with Steve.
I know. I know you do, but right now,
That was incredible. That to me is the therapeutic moment. All of the rapport that you built up with her just in the last 6.5 minutes, 6 minutes and 41 seconds, the rapport that you built up with really put her in a position where she could say what she's most afraid of, what she really wants. I just want to be with Steve. She's feeling that we talked about those earlier slides, abandoned. She's feeling alone. Who knows what that's bringing up for her from when from before. You got a wonderful statement out of here. And I just got to say that was great clinical work. And, these role plays that we do for clinical training, they really do manifest an authentic dynamic. Anything else on this for
yeah, I just want to say that
what?
this to
Yeah.
me, when I'm looking at it, it's the classic empathy, because I remember when I was doing this with her and I was thinking, how would I feel to be alone and have all these thoughts just start flooding my brain? Oh my God, my boyfriend's in jail. He could have hurt somebody. He could have killed somebody. Oh my God. You can't be alone and perseverate like that. It will literally make you want to
Yep.
do something very bad for you.
Yep.
So please get somebody. That
Yeah.
to me is the classic empathy. How would I feel being alone in this situation?
Because
Not
part of what's distressing her is her empathy. He's in withdrawal. I feel like I am. Well, she's not, but she can start showing withdrawal symptoms
she
because
is. She
yeah,
is.
she is because that's what he's going through and they're so enmeshed. So,
Right.
but that statement, I just want to be with him. Perfect. That was like a healing moment, I think.
Now you're Yep. not able to be with him. And it's important for you to have a clear head so you can be there for
Validated right
yourself
away.
and for Steve. Okay. You're going to need to be a very strong person now for you, and then to be able to show up for Steve also and be able to show up for yourself. And this is a very difficult thing to go through alone. And I think it would be a really, really good idea if you could have somebody be with you tonight, or make a phone call, a girlfriend, anybody in your family you think you might be able to contact?
But my sister.
Your sister. Okay. Does she live close? Yeah. All right. So let's go over our plan. You're going to get something to eat, right? Make sure you eat with something. You take a nice shower. Maybe first call your sister. How does that sound to you? So you have somebody there with you and you're not alone. You think you might be able to do that? Yeah. Okay. And we're going to see you tomorrow in group, Lily. Okay. Come, and we're going to be in group together. We're going to be able to give you support, and we're going to work this out one step at a time. Okay? Okay. Thank you for contacting me. I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay.
Fantastic. Really, really good. Really well done.
I gotta say, Dr. Conley, I'm consistent. I haven't seen this in months. I'm saying the exact same things now as I did then. I'm so
Okay. Great.
great. That was great.
I'm going to go ahead and share back on my slideshow screen here, see if I can get the techno to work for us. You looking at the slides now, Dr. Ackerman?
Yep.
Yeah,
Steve's
good.
crash.
Okay, so we're back here. I got my little control panel. That was Steve's crash. So, I think we'll start going into the summary here. We've talked about what defines a crisis, the importance of your own temperament, what to expect from a client. I think we saw in this case many of the things that are very reasonable to expect from somebody who's in a crisis. The absolute statements, the something out of the blue, like the rose tattoo thing. It's like it can really kind of rock you, but don't go down the rabbit hole. You stay right with it, and focus right on the case. And hopefully return the client to a place of somewhat more emotional stability. Some other thoughts on that?
I thought it was really well done. I've enjoyed this presentation.
It is. It is.
I'd like
It's
to go. I hope Dean has enjoyed the presentation.
it's great. I knew the training would go well. Let's see what we got here. I think there may be another slide or two that I just want to take a look at. See if I can get that to roll. There. I do want to acknowledge that material was developed by Dr. Ackerman and myself. A small amount of information was gleaned from Donna Lisa's Snipes slides at all CEUs. Always good to give credit where credit's due. A few bullets here and there. And I'm going to turn this back over to Dean Hale, who may want to talk a little bit more about Learning Thursdays and where things are going.
I want to thank my guests from the Wurzweiler School of Social Work for joining me today. I hope they'll join us again, and I hope you all find it useful while assisting clients in need of services. Your feedback's important to us. It helps us to know if we're meeting your educational goals and expectations. Once you've viewed the presentation in its entirety and completed the quiz, if prompted, please follow directions to access the SurveyMonkey website and take a moment to complete the evaluation, including suggesting any future topics for Learning Thursdays. Once again, thank you for joining us and keep up the good work.
Thank you. An honor. Thank you very much.
Right on. Thanks for having us. We really appreciate the opportunity to train case X in New York State.
Very grateful. Thank you.